Okay, good morning. So since it's a talk on time management, I guess we better start on time. So before we start, a brief overview of Science 90. You may have heard about the study. This is a study we just started in the cath lab. It is a study of people who are high bleeding risk for a shortened DAPT duration. Now you may know that actually in Europe, 3 months is kind of the standard of care. So we are playing catch up in what's going on. But this is a study in which people who are high risk of bleeding are going to get 3 months versus the standard 1 year of dual antiplatelet therapy, and then see what happens. This is mainly happening in the cath lab, so it's for specific for the Zion stand. So we ask our interventionalists to put the Zion stand in those high bleeding risk patients. But anyway, just so you know, this is going on. We're very excited to be part of that study. All right, and going on to the main study, which is about management. All right, and this is something that everyone has some stake in. It's not something that is abstract. We all have issues with managing our time because you have many demands in your time. You have, you're trying to do some work at work, take care of patients, do some research, and then you have a family, take care of yourself. Also, you need to get some sleep and exercise so you can do all that. So there are multiple demands that exist on your time, and the question is how can you manage it all? And this is what we know is that every week actually gives you 168 hours. That's a revelation. It's 7 times 24 is 168 hours. And the beauty of this, it's the same for everyone. It's the same for the fellows, it's the same for the attendings, it's the same for everyone, the exact same amount of time. And that's a lot of time, 168 hours a week, that's quite a lot of time. So how do we spend it? And this is just a brief way to look at it, but that's something everyone can look at him or herself. About 2% of the population have a mutation. They can sleep 4 hours. I don't have that mutation, unfortunately. If you have it, you are very fortunate, but unfortunately it's not the minority. So most people need 7 to 8 hours of sleep. Say 7 hours, that's 49 hours. You spend some time to eat, that's 2 hours a day, 14 hours a week. Let's say you exercise, important to keep you in good shape, as I'll show you down the line, that's another 7 hours. Come back and forth from work, 7 hours. If you say 40-hour week is actually 45 because it's 8 to 5, if you work that. And then spend the time with family, weekend and weekdays. Even if you put it that way, you still have 24 hours left to do something. So there is a lot of time, and of course things can vary. Sometimes you sleep more or less, but you work more or less, but there's still a lot of time even if you put all your work in there. The question is how do you manage the remaining of time? There is a talk on YouTube called The Last Lecture by someone called Randy Paus, which you may have heard. It's actually a book as well, The Last Lecture. This is a professor of engineering at Carnegie Mellon who found he had cancer, and he was dying, so instead of feeling sorry for himself, he actually put out in there about how to make the most out of your time, and obviously in his case, the time he had was relatively small, and one of the things he mentions is that there's a lot of time that we could use better than we currently are. And some of the signs of time wasting is having a messy or cluttered desk. You think about it yourself, it's, we'll do that at some point or another. Can't find things. To miss appointments or have to reschedule because we're unprepared for them. And also to do things that sometimes you shouldn't be doing, but someone else should be doing. This is the volunteering part. Or having able to allocate to someone else. And finally, you're so tired, you haven't slept much, you're so tired, you're unable to concentrate, so you're trying to do something, but actually you are not very productive about it. So what is time management? And of course, you go to Wikipedia. And according to Wikipedia, is the art of planning and exercising conscious control of time to increase effectiveness, efficiency, and productivity. So it's a fairly elaborate term. And it's also about juggling acts of various demands of study, social life, work, family, and personal interests. So planning and control of time are the two works that stand out of here. And if you look at planning, once again, Wikipedia, planning means you choose a destination, you evaluate different routes, and then you decide which specific route you want to take. So if you put it down to the specific elements, what it is about time management, the first thing is to create an environment that is conducive to effectiveness, meaning you have a clean desk, you have your files where you need them, you have a pen and pencil when you need it. Then you set priorities, and that's a big one, because there are two big things, is what you can do and what you should do. And then you do activities based on the things that are most important to you. And it's constant going back and forth between planning and doing. So defining the work and actually doing the work are two separate things, but go completely, continuously one forward after another. And if you break it down to even more granular elements, there are two big categories. One is to get more efficient. So being faster of what you do, it's one component. The other component is do actually less. So there's no magic. If there's a million things you want to do, you can only do so much in the 168 hours plus 24 hours left to you after you take care of everything. So getting more efficient or doing less things, this is where things are focused on. The key things, I think, to time management. Now, time management is a misnomer. You cannot manage time. As I said before, time is something the same for everyone. What you manage is yourself. So time management actually should be renamed to self-management within the confines of time. The Pareto Principle tells you that of everything we do, 80% of the results come out of 20% of the things you do. So you could imagine how great it would be if you can choose and do only the 20% of things that give you the 80% of results. And which are those things? You will find out later, but some common things are Facebook, Twitter, probably not the best use of time. But there are many things, and many people suggest doing this exercise where for a week you write down for every few minutes what you do every day. And then you look at it at the end of the day or the week and you say, okay, I've done these things. Is this what I should be doing or not? So creating an effective environment. That applies to everything. The more effective you are, the more efficient, the less time you spend doing things, then the better it's going to do. And how can you do that? This is an overview. One is you have to have a category of the things you've committed to and you're supposed to do. You don't have an office that is working well, but the environment is yourself. If you're tired, if you're not feeling good, then you're not going to be as effective as if you're well-rested, you're well-fed, you're feeling good about yourself. The social network is key, not only because it makes it easier to work on different things, but also it's motivational. If you have a great group like here, then it motivates you to do things great as well. And then finally, limiting disruptions is very important. Now, I don't mean by this you don't answer your pager, to clarify, because something that's a high priority thing, but there are many other disruptions that actually are self-inflicted. For example, you're doing something, but then the text comes up or your email comes up, and then you stop doing what you're doing to do something else. And as I'll show you, this is actually a big time waster, because there is no such thing as multitasking. Actually, our brain is designed to do only one thing at a time. So lists, and why are they so important? And obviously I'm a big fan of this, but lists are important because you want to have at any given time an inventory of what you want to do. The things you've committed to, the things going on. And there are many ways you can manage them, and you choose which one you want to do. By the way, today's Cyber Monday, so sales on all the software. No commission for anything. I use OneNote, which is actually a free software. Everyone can download it for free, and you can synchronize your phone and your computer, and you can be on the web. So it's one way to keep your list available everywhere at every time. But there are many different ones. You've all seen these desks. In my previous job, there was an office like this that actually was a fire hazard. The fire marshal came in. They literally had to make them pull all the papers, like journals were going all everywhere. It was impossible to sit somewhere. And you're laughing, but including myself, but sometimes my office is not quite as well clean as it could be, and it's hard to make things work if not. And this is an example. This is my desk. Would you rather be in this environment or in that environment? It's that simple. The moment you come in your desk or in your office, you look at your desk, and what you see is your first thoughts. If you see a mess, then you're not going to focus on the hard things you want to do or how to deal with what is going over there, or with the question, what is in here that I should be doing? So having this clarified and cleaned up earlier on makes life much easier when you come back on Monday. How many of you have a zero inbox for your email? Okay, one, okay, and that's more than usual too. Now, I will admit, I'm not very good at it. I did this on my last talk, so I had to be truthful, so I actually did it myself, but it's very hard to actually get all your emails cleaned up. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to do everything including those emails, but then you put them down in various lists. And I will talk about some lists that I personally use that I'm a big fan of David Allen, I'll show you later on, which breaks into different categories, such as the ones you need to do something, the action needed, the ones you're waiting something, and some reference materials. But having this is important because it's one thing to have 5,000 emails in your inbox versus having, essentially having thought of what is going up and putting it in categories so you don't, every time you open your email, you don't have to think through again the same emails that are sitting there for a long, long period of time. Now, I'm a big believer in the two screens, which is costing the foundation some money. However, I believe it's money well spent because it's hard to work in one screen. As you see in the hospital too, pretty much every workstation has two screens. And this is huge in my mind. It's hard, as you know, to do things going back and forth, and having to switch manually back and forth different windows is just a waste of time. Having two screens is one way to do it. If you're going to get the biggest screen, there's a 49-inch, just came out in the market. It's a little pricey, but believe me, it's well worth the expense. Speakerphone is important, so you have your hands free when you're talking on the phone so you can take notes or do other things. Scanner, now the phone is your scanner as well, but having paper these days may be more of an obstruction. Having everything organized electronically can help you out. But pen and paper remains very important. Actually, for me, most of the things when I think or plan, actually I like better being on paper. You have much more freedom than typing, and then you can rearrange things, and it's just an easy way to capture. Now, David Allen, again, I'll be coming back and forth, says that everywhere where you are in your house or your work, you should have pen and paper because ideas are coming at you all the time. And this one idea that may be the idea, you may miss it if you don't write it down. You may forget it, it may never come back to you. So having a way to capture things that come to you is very handy, and pen and paper is one of the easiest ways to do this. Now, how often many of you are trying to find a file and you cannot find it? Few people. Now, the computer is not designed to be your file managing system because then you lose your computer or it breaks down, then you lost all your files. It's ideal to have them in a location that you can work everywhere. And that location could be outside an X drive or can be online. And there are multiple online ways to do it. And even if you don't use the online system to actually retrieve it every time, having the backup is important because you may lose your drive or your computer. So again, that's for me, I'm a big believer. I have a big drive with everything in, but also I back everything up into the cloud. So if I'm somewhere and I miss a file, I can always go and retrieve it. Or if I lose my hard drive, I can always find it. So these are small things, but believe me, having all the files in one location makes it a huge deal. Making presentations, finding this grant proposal, finding this paper I want to look at, makes a huge deal to have everything in one place. You plug it in one computer, plug it in another computer, makes things much, much easier. But also, apart from the electronics, the environment is also how we are. And a big part of this, I actually have a couple of papers for this. One is from Jader Sandoval from a couple of years ago. Sleep is important. Now, when you're on call, you may not get enough sleep, but it is important for your mood, for your health, for immunity, for many other things. And again, I don't always practice what I preach, but I do feel much, much better personally when I'm well rested than when I'm not. At the same time, you're going to start your day early. Now, you figure how you do it. But you want to be well rested because that makes you more productive. At the same time, being up early gives you the head start in the day. Exercise, a key thing. You all say, well, I don't have time to exercise. Well, guess what? By doing that, actually that gives you energy that makes you more effective, actually may make up the time you spend at it, plus it's a natural antidepressant. Then you can eat more too. And then you are what you eat. You know, we're in Florida recently, and one of the guys were asking the kids, okay, why are the green turtles green? Well, they're green because they eat grass. And guess what? What we're eating is what we are. So maybe a little turkey today, but The bottom line is what you eat is what you are, so choose what you want to be based on what you eat. And then also the environment includes a social network. And that's not only the work colleagues, it's also about family, friends, classmates, different organizations we work with, American Heart, ACC Sky. Having an effective social network can make things much more productive because you can bounce ideas, you get opportunities you might not get otherwise, but that doesn't happen automatically. It takes some time to build it and takes some time to maintain it. And the key concept that underlines all this is discipline. So there are many things you want to do, but at the end of the day, you have to start doing them, and committing to something and doing it requires some discipline. Going on to interruptions. The multitasking is a myth, and I personally believe this. There is a book also called Brain Change. The one simple thing you can do is do one thing at a time. Even the computers, where you think that they're multitasking, they're not. What the computers do is they do something, then they switch to something else, and they switch back to it. Now, computers can do it much more effectively than we do. For us, when you change something, it takes you some time to get back to what you are doing. And there are multiple interruptions, email, text, tweeters. Now, interruptions are not always bad. Some interruptions are important. When the patient is crashing and needs to go on ECMO, I mean, that's an interruption you want to have. But many others do not. There's actually this little sign saying, weekly review in process, please do not interrupt. Being able to keep some time without interruptions is critical for productivity and also happiness. What I've seen personally is you get actually frustrated and depressed sometimes when you're trying to do something, but you keep on getting interrupted. And then you don't feel like you're achieving something. So the act of actually finishing one task and going to another is huge on how you feel and how productive you're going to be. That's a big disruption. TV. David Allegan said, I can resist everything except for temptation. And I would go to a hotel room, I'll say, well, I'll watch for, I don't have a TV at home. I would say, I'll watch TV for 5 minutes. Well, 2 hours later, guess what? So I realized there's no solution. It's like drugs, like heroin, right? You don't want to start it, because if you start it, you're going to continue doing this. And again, that's maybe an extreme, but the bottom line is you want to minimize temptations because it's hard to resist those temptations. So let's say you do all these things. The results are that you have a clear head. You have an office that is well organized. Your computer is functioning. You have your pen and paper. You have all your tools. You have your software you need. You have your lists. You're feeling good. You're connected so you can get help when you need it, but you don't get interruptions. And very importantly, you're motivated. There's this book called The Flow from Kazi. It's a book about the state you want to be in, which you're so engaged in what you're doing that time disappears and nothing else matters. And actually you can go on for hours and hours and you're very inspired. Doesn't happen very often, but when it happens, it's an amazing experience because you do get more productive and more creative when you're in that state. All right, that's how to do things, but the first question is, what should you or should I be doing? And there are many more things to do than we can do. So we have to decide what are the things that are important to do. There's a YouTube video from Vanderkamp, TEDx talk, saying that there is no such thing as I don't have enough time. What you actually mean when you say I don't have enough time is this is not a priority for me. But you're polite, so you say I don't have enough time. But the reality is that if it's a priority for you, you'll make time for it. If your car breaks down, do you have time for fixing your car? Yes, you are. If your basement floods, do you have time to fix your basement? Yes, you do. So some things are more important than others. And the question is, what are those things? So is money those things? Money is important, but this is a graph showing the level of happiness, and of course there's some give or take, but there's the happiness from the 50s up to 2005. The income over this time really increased, but then the level of happiness was about the same. So yes, you do need money to do some basic things, but then once you have the basic things you need, money really doesn't necessarily make you happier. Is helping others what is important, and we're very fortunate in what we do. We actually have this is directly what we're doing. We have patients who come in and we take care of them, either clinically, literally, or in research or in studies, but that's what we do, and we're very fortunate for doing that. But giving is living, Tuesdays with Maury. This is from the ACC headquarters in Washington. This is someone helping someone else climb up the wall, and that obviously gives you a great satisfaction in life. The 7 habits give different levels of the things that you want to be doing. The ultimate is to leave a legacy, but you have to start from the basic things, the emotional needs, your mental needs, until you get to that part. And that actually is reflected in this living funeral in this book, Tuesdays with Maury, in which to decide what's a priority for you, you can visualize your funeral. Now, this may sound a little extreme, but actually there is such thing called the living funerals, where you get your friends and family and you actually enact your future funeral. And you think, or you do it yourself, and you think, what would I want them to say about me when I'm no longer there? And then you can take this and try to make it a priority for you. Now, another way to do this a little less, maybe in a less obstructive way, is to do your Christmas card, but not for this year. Do your Christmas card for 2019. So a year ahead, put your Christmas card and say, well, and, you say, we did this with the family, we did this. The question is, what do you want to say next year in your Christmas card? And what you want to say for next year becomes your priority for this year. And is the goal happiness? Everyone says, well, I want to be happy. We tell our kids, we want you to be happy. That's what matters. But happiness is actually not a goal. It's what happens when you do the things that are important to you. So happiness is great, but that's not by itself the goal to go after. This is the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Same thing as before. You have to start from the basics. You cannot go to the ultimate until you cover the basic steps, having the basic things for life, food, shelter, and then feeling safe, building a family, feeling yourself that you're worthwhile, you're doing the things that are important, and eventually moving on to the more other thinking and helping other people and achieving the ultimate things for you eventually. How do you decide if something is something you should put on your list to do, it's a big priority or not? This is also a classic 4x4 box. And this is about the urgent and important. There are 2 lists, important, not important, and urgent, not urgent. The quadrant you want to be at is the upper left. This is or upper right as you're looking at it, the non-urgent. You want to be doing things that are important, but not necessarily urgent, such as preventing disasters, building relationships, recognizing opportunities, planning, and even recreation, having fun. You have to plan for it sometimes, otherwise it won't come for itself. The places you don't want to be are the non-important, especially the urgent non-important, and that comes back to the interruptions, some emails, some meetings that are not necessary. So being able to function on the important parts is what makes it more important. And the reason is that there is such a thing as too much. There are way too many things, and see what happens. And that's a feeling we often get. When you have many things to do, you don't feel you can get it done. So how do you prevent getting into this category? One way is by saying no. Not to me, but you can say no to other people. So there is such a thing as saying no. There is polite ways, there are unpolite ways, but what you should remember, every time you say yes, you're at the same time saying no to something else. So when they ask you to write this review paper, then do you say yes or no? Or there's a third option, you delegate. Our fellows are here, so. But the bottom line is you have to decide if everything they're being asked to do is something that's important enough or not. And if it's not, then saying no, it's okay. Actually, it's not okay, it's a must. Otherwise, you'll be drowning in things that are not very important for you. And this also from Randy Pausch says that these brick walls are there for a reason, and that reason is to keep people out who are not really want these things. So he wanted to fly in space. It sounds pretty crazy. But he eventually managed to do it, go to zero gravity in a plane, find different ways to do it. But the bottom line is if you want something really bad, you're going to find a way. And there's obstacles, but the obstacles are to be overcome. If you really want something, you're going to find a way to do it, but it's got to be your priority. If you have 20,000 other things to do, then it may not happen. But if you really want it, it becomes your big priority, then you'll find ways to get this done. So how do you do it? And that's the book I mentioned to you. It's mandatory reading for all our fellows. And I've been reading this for now, 15, 16 years, and still I'm learning from it. And this is a way of carrying out this activity, is how you decide what you're going to do and actually how do you get things done. David Allen, if you go on YouTube, on the web, there's many, many videos he's done, a blog, there's many ways that you can go over it. And he breaks things down into 5 steps. The first one is to capture things that have your attention. The second is to understand what these things mean. For example, you have in your list and you say, mother. What does mother mean? Well, I want to make a birthday party for my mother. Okay, that's the actual goal. So what it means. And then how do you put it in categories? How do you think about it? And then finally get actually moving and doing. So all this process is done to make you actually do the things that you can do. And the whole premise here is that at 8 a.m. this morning, you have 20,000 things to do. What is the one thing that you should be doing at this time, or at 3 p.m. today, or at 5 p.m. today, or if something happens and your patient comes, so you have half an hour ahead of you, so you have a list of the things that you could do to decide which one is the most important to do from all those things. So this starts from the collection phase. And doing this exercise actually is a very, at least for me, it's a very calming experience. You have all these things going on. You want to buy something for the house. You have a paper pending. You have a patient waiting a call back. But writing all down, collecting all these things that have your attention essentially is very important to feel confident that you're doing the most important thing at any given time. So the first step again is to capture everything. And there are actually trigger lists, if you go online, that if you have a hard time trying to think of the things that have your attention, there are actually ways to make you think of them. Things for your household, for your health, transportation, your clothes, your pets, errands. Just look at different parts of life. I'm sure that you'll find many things that you say, oh yes, I have to do this thing, and writing it down. Now, having things that come in, the next step is to understand, can you do something about it? Because there are some things that you cannot do something about. So the question is it something you should do something about? If not, they can either delete it or say wait for it for something later on, or store it as a reference. So understanding what everything means is important. You don't have to do everything. And another key component, which I'm learning myself all the time, is how to delegate. You cannot do everything, and having a team and delegating things you don't have to do to others can make you do other things that may be more important. There are many reasons or barriers where you may or may not delegate, and a big part of this is losing control or not getting credit. So being comfortable giving duties to others can really help you be more effective on other things that are more important to you. And then you want the things that you now captured and clarified that I have to do X amount of things. How do you put them into categories? And according to what he recommends, 4 lists are the way to have them, plus a calendar. And those lists are a list of projects, which is the things that you committed to. The thing is then a list for the next actions, which are the actual next steps, specific things you want to do, which is write the cover letter for the paper. 3, waiting for. These are things that you've asked someone to do, or you're waiting for something to come back before you can do something about it. That's key to keep, because you ask someone to do something, and then they forget about it, and if you forget about it, it's over. So having a list about waiting for can really help you, and if you review it, of course, as I'll go over it every week, keeping track of, say, okay, I haven't heard back from you regarding this specific thing. Can you please get back to me? One category is for the crazy things, your bucket list, the things you haven't done but you may want to do in 5, 10, 20 years or in a lifetime. And finally, the calendar, which is actually the specific things that you're committed to at a specific time on a day. But none of this is going to work unless you do this, which once again, I'll admit I'm not the best at, but whenever I do it, I get the most out of it, which is every week, do the so-called weekly review, which you do the same thing. You see the things that happened during this week. You empty your inboxes, your email, empty your bag, empty the little papers in your pocket, and write them down. And then review your calendar, review the things you're committed to do, your projects, you're waiting for list, and then you get the reminders. Oops, I haven't heard about that. Maybe I should email this person, or I have to call someone on Monday. And then finally, don't forget to get creative. The whole reason for doing all this is to actually empty your head from the things you're worrying about, because now you have a clear picture of what you committed to, so you can get more ideas about other things that are important and may become more important than even the things you have in your list right now. And lastly, you actually get things done. All these things before were planning. They were said before, there's planning and doing. A lot of planning, but that translates into doing. If you don't get to the step, well, things are not going to happen. That's the final essential step. And how do you decide what you can do? Where you are, the context, how much time you have, how good you feel, and what is the priority. You want to do the most important things first, but if it's 5 p.m. on a Friday or 6 p.m., you're exhausted, but you do have half an hour, maybe you have some less critical things to do. Clear the office, put these papers, file those papers, do some small things that need to be done, but don't have to be done at 7 in the morning when you're super energetic and super well rested and you're ready to put down this new proposal, write this paper, do something more important. And you can do things as they come, but that's usually not the best way. If you get your email and you feel forced every time to force your email, that's a problem, unless you use the 2-minute rule, which means that for doing all this, if an action comes, if something comes up, an email or a phone call, and you can take care of it in 2 minutes, it turns out it may be more effective to just take care of it on the spot than try to file it and get back to it later on. But for most things that take more than 2 minutes, it may be best to do it later. And the whole idea here is many people think, well, my priorities, what are the things I want to do in life? What are the most important things? The problem with that is you may have some very lofty goals, but if you feel you're not sure that you've paid your bills, or you've done the note on this patient, or you do the basic things that you do every day, or your car has enough gas in it, it's hard to think of those things. On the other way, the bottom up, if you take care of these little things, if you have your computer in order, you have gas in your car, you know you've seen the patient, you don't have something to do in the next 5 minutes, then you can think higher up on the most important things. So David Allen and I am a big believer of having things in order. The basic things that can help you actually go to the more important things down the line. Wikipedia again, you do all this because you want to eliminate the non-priorities. There are some things that you don't have to do, and by not doing them, you empty a lot of time that you can do more important things. You want to start with the big tasks in the morning. This is common with my kids, right? They get up in the morning, what they want to do? They want to play. Well, if you did your homework now, then you could play much better. They don't get it. Well, many adults don't get it. But imagine you start in the morning and you have this one big thing. You have this note to write, or this patient to see, or this that scares you the most. By getting it done in the beginning, it's amazing how much better you feel and how much more productive you'll be the rest of the day. If you procrastinate, now it's 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, you're exhausted, what are you going to do? Starting your day early. Everyone is different, but in general in the morning, you have more energy and then you have less interruptions. You come to the office at 6 o'clock, guess what? There's no one there to interrupt you. So you can get many more things done. That's a tough one. But whenever I can do it, it really pays off. Don't check email until noon. For many reasons. You check your email in the morning, you get little things that come up and stress you out, number one. Number two, you're less likely to do the most important things that you have in your day. So you want to get these important things done first and then go to your email. Small things done consistently. So writing things down, organizing and clarifying them, these do matter. You don't expect things to come your way, but you want to explore different things. So what is a priority today is not what it was yesterday. It's not what's going to be tomorrow. You want to be kind of more broad so you can get the things that are going to be for the future. Writing things down is very important. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to have, now let me clarify. You have to be perfect, but you have to be decent enough, right? I didn't say you have to be not sloppy, but sometimes you may have this paper and it's pretty good. You could spend another 5 hours, make it a little bit better. Well, those 5 hours would be best spent in something different. So you don't have to be perfect, but good enough is good for everything. The 2-minute rule I mentioned, if something can be done in 2 minutes, just do it. Makes life easier later on. And then, the better you get at this, the better you better get. Because what happens, you get these things done, then you get things done very well, which means people see that you do things very well, which means they ask you to do more things, which means you better be much better because you have many more things to do well than you currently are. So this is a whole process and it never ends. So to summarize, at least some questions, time is what it is, 168 hours a week, the same for everyone. Time management should actually be self-management. This time management means we do things ourselves to get things done. And there are two categories. Do less, which is the important things, but also what you do when you do things, do them more effectively so you have more time to devote to the other things. Do what matters, not everything does. This never stops. And by teaching to someone else, so if you do this, the best way to learn about it is actually teach it. For me, doing all this, I watched a lot of YouTube videos. All these books I mentioned there is my favorite books on the topic. Getting Things Done I mentioned is a critical one book. Steve Covey's is critical about priorities. And then in terms of thinking big picture, the last lecture from Randy Pausch and Tuesdays with Maury, in my mind, these are important things that key as to what is really the priority down the life and help us decide what matters and what not. Thank you very much.
Questions?
You gave such a fantastic lecture on getting things done and did an hour lecture in 45 minutes.
Well, time management.
Thank you. Manos, clearly we see a product that's evolved to being very effective. Can you give us a glimpse of 20 years ago? Where did you start from? Were you as a kid, as a teenager, as a young man, younger man, very organized? Because some of us are starting at a tough place and have a long road to go to get to where you're at.
Well, let me clarify. What I say to do doesn't mean that's what I do, right? Let's just be completely transparent. I try to do it, but I don't always do it. For me, so my mother was a nurse in a military hospital. She was used things to be in a certain way. And so I was actually lucky I grew up with that. But another turning, so I always wanted to have things kind of organized to some extent. But 2004 is when I finished fellowship. That's when I got the Getting Things Done book. And I must say, these are the things that resonated more with me, like some basic things like getting things done, writing things down. Makes sense, right? But you don't necessarily do it. Putting it in buckets. I still don't do it perfectly, but what I've learned is that, you do something, then you do it, and then it helps you learn something, and then what you want to do changes and becomes something different. So this is not something that is fixed in my mind. It's not something you have to have this list and do that. It's something that the whole thing about this is not the goal. This is the means. Now, what the goal is different for everyone and changes for time to time. So these are some tools that can help you get that thing, whatever is important, getting done more effectively.
Thank you for the great lecture. It was very inspiring, obviously. Also made me depressed because I realized what my life looks like comparing to what it should look like. Question to you, is there any way with this to actually physically on day-to-day basis coach people into it, because I think that coming to listen to your lecture and seeing you implementing it in your lifestyle, I mean that's obviously very inspiring. But I think for many of us, maybe that definitely for me, I don't know where to start. Meaning, and I would like somebody to coach me into it, And I don't think this is also very easy to take somebody that is 40 years old and was trained. For example, surgeons are trained in damage control mode, because that's how we operate, and reorganize their life to be like this. How to do it?
But actually, I think you're uniquely qualified, because surgeons have a lot of discipline, a lot of stamina, and they're attention to detail, right? I mean, surgeons are very attentive to detail. They all have to be a certain way and this and that. So actually, you are actually better ahead than you think. Now, in practical terms, how do you do this? I did so GDD. They actually do like a one-day. They do courses. They actually can get someone and spend a full day just talking about what I just said in 40 minutes. The full day with someone who does it. There's online communities. There are reading the book is one way. It's an audio book, so you can actually read it when you are in your car or doing something else. And actually, there are consultants that people actually do this for life. They come to your office. I mean, you pay them, but I haven't done that personally, but I've heard from other people that actually said one way to do it, get a coach who comes in, looks how you operate for a day, and gives you suggestions like, hey, you can do this and that. So, no, but you're right. It's not, there are different levels of this, but just being willing, I mean, the question is, do you want to do something? And if you do, again, the first step is listen to the book or listen to somebody on YouTube. There's videos on YouTube. You can just listen to it and get the basics. And then decide on a system. I mean, the one note is free. So you can try. If you don't like it, you didn't lose anything. And then if you want to advance, get the course or get a consultant.
So I think to add to your suggestions, I think the piece of advice you said to start with is just to list everything out. Because if you don't have the list of everything that you feel is important throughout your entire life, and then taking the time to prioritize that in terms of, so I think to start with, if you don't have the opportunity to, because you need the time to read the book, and if you don't have the time to read the book, you'll never get started. So I think a relatively straightforward thing is to start building the list, and then think about what's the important priorities and what are the things that need to accomplish to get that done, because you can do that relatively quickly, and then start to work towards the longer-term goal.
Look, Steve gets results. I must say, he comes to the point. Yeah, I completely agree with you, Steve. That's probably one of the easiest. It's not easy, but it's one of the most return for your investment you can do earlier on.
Emmanouil, I think fascinating topic today, and part of it goes back to my fellowship where my mentor was Rick Nishimura, who's well known in the cardiology community. And I had the pleasure of working with Rick for 2 years, and he's the most efficient person I've ever known in my life. And one of the things that he always taught me was the concept of do it now, do it now. And what I always saw him do was whenever he finished with the patient or he was doing something with the end of manuscript, he always stopped and did it now. And when I see the opposite, that is inefficient people, it's that concept where they're on hospital service, they run and see Mr. Jones, but they're like, well, I'll write the note later. I'll write the note later. And at the end of the day, they've got all their notes left to write. Instead of going to 5200 and seeing that other quick patient, they say, well, I'll see Mr. Jones later, rather than finishing with Mr. Smith and running over to see Mr. Jones, and then you're done for the evening. So I think, I agree with all the concepts you brought up, but I just want to emphasize that idea of do it now, get it done, rather than create this ongoing list of all these things in your head that you have to do later. Think about it. Every time you say to yourself, I'll do it later, ask your question, why? Why do it later? Why not do it?
Completely agree. Actually, that's part of the interruptions, right? What you're doing is you're interrupting your, session with the patient, right? So you're interrupting what you've done for the last 20 minutes, which is fresh in your mind, and then you bring it back later on. So you'll be much less effective. And actually, I was fortunate. I also trained with Dr. Nishimura, so I remember every day, he had a piece of paper with his pocket. I mean, every day. And then he would check things off. He had like 50 things listed there. And then, obviously, he was amazing in how he moved back and forth through everything. But then he would literally cross everything a little bit after a while. So at the end of the day, the whole list was crossed out, which is, as you said, impressive. But he was the same thing. He would see a patient. I remember he was walking to the next patient dictating on the phone during rounds. I mean, it's amazing efficiency. Obviously, he's very articulate. He can do things very quickly. But you're absolutely right. That's the best way to get it done.